Okay, the recording seems to have started, and I think we were doing weather forecasting. Now, what do you remember? Because unfortunately, we missed out on two continuous lectures yesterday and day before, and the first lecture was way back in the last week. So, what do you remember of the lecture on weather forecasting? Can anybody please throw some light on what exactly did that mean to us, and what did you understand? Of course, a lot needs to be completed as well, but whatever we had done, what can you say about that? What, in other words, what have you understood when we say weather forecasting? Can I have a brief, say, discussion on that?
So we have seen fronts and 7 elements of weather.
Okay, okay. Why do we need weather forecasting? Why should we forecast weather?
समोरच्या वातावरणाचा
या
आपल्याला अंदाज येतो.
कशाला तेच म्हणतोय ना, मग अंदाज त्यालाच फोरकास्टिंग म्हणतो. तर अंदाज का घ्यायचा असतो आपल्याला? वाय शुड बी गोइंग फॉर वेदर फोरकास्टिंग?
जर म्हणजे हानी वगैरे होणार असेल तर त्याची पूर्वतयारी आपल्याला करता येते त्याच्या मदतीने किंवा त्याच्याद्वारे.
Exactly. Okay. You say forecasting is basically you're looking out from repeated events, and if these events happen to be extreme events, you already have a history of what heavy rain, what heavy flood, etc. may do, what a heat wave may do, what a cold wave may do around, and as a consequence, in case you have a next heavy rain, what is called as a cloud burst, or you may have floods due to that, or you have a heat wave, or you have a cold wave as such. How should you be prepared for that? Okay, if that would be better, the mitigation as it is called, it would be better if you have a idea as to when probably would this be happening. And amongst this, okay, of course, I am speaking very broad scale. See that minor things like rain on a particular day, cloudy day, all of this would be required, and we need to understand all these things. Okay, and the impacts, particularly the negative impacts on life and property, would be very important as far as say preventing the fatalities as far as life is concerned, loss of property is concerned. All this would involve, say, if say it could get reduced if we have a proper forecast for that as such. Okay, so a simple thing like I don't know how many of you all follow this, but say during say the months of April and May and in October, आपल्याला महाराष्ट्रामध्ये आपण त्याला अवकाळी पाऊस किंवा वळीवाचा पाऊस म्हणतो. That is accompanied with unseasonal rains, are accompanied with thunder and lightning. Okay, and the government keeps record of how many lives are lost because of lightning striking in different places as such. That is also a type of disaster. It may not be a large scale disaster, but obviously it will be a disaster for a family if the person is going to be the only bread earning member of that particular family. From a micro scale to a micro scale, you'll see that minor to major events as far as climate and weather are concerned are obviously going to affect to an extent that if you're able to forecast on a macro scale, I would say if you're able to forecast monsoon, that you're going to have a good monsoon and that the monsoon is going to start in time, etc., etc. I will see that the farmers would be in a position to plan their say the farming activity in that particular way. If you're not able to, and just say, imagine that it so happens that in a particular year unfortunately the rains get delayed or there is a gap between two showers of rainfall, or you could have a heavy rain in a particular area. And if you're going to have heavy rain at the start of the monsoon itself, you'll see that the tender shoots of the crop could actually get washed away, or they could decay. Okay, पिकं सडण्याचाही प्रकार होतो की जेव्हा पाणी तुंबून राहतं शेतामध्ये, and so on and so forth. So all these minor things, in fact, one could go on as far as giving examples are concerned, from minor to major, local to spatial, local to global, and so on and so forth. That's why understanding forecasting and why do say what is forecasting all about becomes that important. And in that case, we had initially started with the various ways in which we tend to forecast these aspects as such. And yeah, just let me. Okay, fine. So we had started with this last time, and the fact that we had moved ahead also, that we tend to understand forecasting at various scales to understand the climate change that may take, extreme events as far as weather phenomena are concerned, changing patterns as far as these events happening around us is concerned. And then we go on to actually see at the impact of it, particularly as far as human beings are concerned and the surrounding ecosystems are concerned, human beings, particularly with reference to life and food and so on and so forth. So it becomes interestingly important. As I said the other day, that you nowadays have a lot of emojis depicting various styles of weather pattern that you have, and you have them on WhatsApp also. Okay, and the more technical one is this, wherein you actually, this is called a synoptic mapping, wherein you actually place the symbols at the locations with regards various aspects, right from pressure. You could also map the temperature. You could actually go in for what is called as uh, uh, present weather conditions, and we spoke about that in elaboration about how it looks to be a very large chart, but then there are a lot of repetitions, and you need to understand the logic behind those repetitions and the commonalities as far as the various symbols are concerned as such. Okay, we don't have time, but then it would have been very interesting that we could have had a quiz around this in a very short time. Okay, that we could have divided you all into a few groups, and in this whole process, we have what is called as um, there are features as far as classrooms is concerned, wherein I could have gone for a quiz and we could have seen which team would have scored much on that. Unfortunately, we don't have all that time, but as I said, that there is definitely a logic. And if you know a few basic symbols, you'll see that extending those and extending the understanding of those symbols into other aspects is going to be very, very simple as such. And then we went into the elements of weather and how it all starts with the heat, which builds up the intensity of the heat is measured in temperature, and the variation in this intensity will lead to air pressure, and that will lead to wind. And of course, then it brings in other aspects like humidity and precipitation and clouds and visibility as well. Visibility, obviously, when the condensation is going to be more near the surface rather than anywhere else as such. So that is as far as these elements of weather are concerned. Uh, these are the various apps, okay, that are available, and in fact the sheer number of these apps that are available on Google Store, Google Play, will indicate at the fact that the importance that that every individual actually should be having some information. I won't say knowledge, at least information about the weather phenomena around as such. And in this context, I've made you all follow a particular app, okay, which we popularly call as Weather and Radar app as such. Besides Weather and Radar, you have all these, and of course, Google also will give you weather conditions every now and then. At any point of time you would require, you just switch on your mobile phone and you click the app, and that would give you various conditions. Okay, so that's interesting as well. And in fact, say the very fact that how do you realize the importance of a particular thing, in the sense that uh, the sheer number of various apps that you have. Okay, you obviously somebody is going to invest in making or building an app only when you are going to have an ample amount of use of that. Similarly, you'll see that as far as the emojis that we were speaking about, okay, you're going to have so many emojis and cartoons only when that becomes to that feature tends to be very popular on the internet. So you'll see that this brings in the importance as far as weather phenomena people understanding, at least again I would say not knowledge, and say not having a knowledge about it. I would in fact say not even having understanding about that, but just having information that okay, it's going to rain, it's going to be hot, it's going to be cold. So people can be mentally prepared for that particular type of weather on a particular day as such. That brings in the importance, and subsequently the weather forecast as sorry. You'll see that at any point of time you look at the sky, and the sky would be full of say at times full of clouds, and these clouds could be piled up. These clouds could be of various colors. The sky also could be in varied colors as such, and all this is an indication of how we are actually looking at the sky, and how we are trying to study it, and how we are going to interpret the subsequent weather phenomena that is accompanied with a particular style as such. Now, having said that, now will somebody let me know where we had stopped last time? Had we gone into this? I think we were into this as well.
Yes, sir.
But I don't think we finished all of it. We finished the temporal part of it. How deep have we gone in the spatial part of weather forecasting? Or have we finished with that as well? I think yes, we have finished with that as well. I'll just quickly go through what weather forecasting does in geography as far as temporal and spatial scale is concerned. Temporal is obviously time scale as such. Okay, the least, of course, now those with specialized interests and topics as far as climate, weather, and technology is concerned could go into minute by minute tracking also. In fact, live tracking is done at, say, leave aside minute, it's done at second basis as such. But that depends on how the data set is going to be required for a particular uh, researcher. As far as the layman is concerned, the temporal scale of weather forecasting would start at a daily base. And as I said, that if it's going to be rainy, if it's going to be sunny, if it's going to be hot, if it's going to be cold, okay, if I'm known to that, obviously I would be better prepared as far as handling that particular weather for that day is concerned. So daily, it would start from a daily scale of, say, weather forecasting, and then weekly, in the sense I'm going to travel for a long period for that particular week to a particular nearby place as such. Obviously, a weekly forecast could be helpful for me if I'm planning a trip to a particular place during some holiday time. Okay, monthly forecast could be helpful to us. Agriculture would be used as far as seasonal and annual patterns are concerned. Long-term and paleoclimate obviously have a sheer purpose of research. Okay, so long-term again, now you could have different combinations: long-term daily, long-term weekly, long-term monthly, long-term micro, long-term macro, and so on and so forth. So more the combination, more is going to be the perfectness, I would rather say, as far as forecasting a particular style or pattern of weather phenomena is concerned. Coming to the spatial aspect as such, okay, from a micro level, in a very small area to a macro level, let us say a certain part of a city or a town or a district as such, to take it to a larger scale, say state level, and then of course we bring it up to much larger level, national, continental, and global. Okay, so you'll see when I'm speaking about global, it would be very difficult to track. Now you have to be very logical about this forecasting also. But speaking about global, and I'm trying to take global daily weather, it's going to be a difficult thing basically, because all the places all around the world fetching daily weather, it's possible with technology, but then what are you going to do with the data? Okay, as a consequence, when we speak about global, it's normally annual, it's normally long term, it's normally paleoclimatic, and so on and so forth. So we have to have that say that logic behind us. If I'm going to select a particular aspect of in forecasting, let it be temporal, let it be spatial, I should be ready with the reason as to why I would be using that particular temporal aspect, why would be I using that particular spatial aspect as such. की आहे समोर म्हणून करण्यात काही पॉइंट नाहीये. यू शुड हॅव अ व्हेरी क्लिअर लॉजिक की मला हे करायचंय आणि हे करत असताना मला याची गरज भासणार आहे. सो दॅट इज हाऊ यू हॅव टू कीप अ व्हेरी say critical eye on weather forecasting as such. Okay, करायचं म्हणून करण्यात काही पॉइंट नाहीये. You have to be very specific and you have to be very logical as far as that approach is concerned. As I said, weather has been and elements of weather have been a very interesting aspect, right from Hollywood to Bollywood and other aspects as such, from commercial cinema to say amateur cinema and so on and so forth. Rain has in fact interested and in fact has impacted stories as far as and screenplays as far as various movies are concerned. This was obviously on the lighter side of it, and of course, but once again, I would say that given the number of apps and given the number of cartoons in emojis, and of course, given the number of films from Bollywood to Hollywood and otherwise, having names associated with various weather phenomena, again, brings in the sheer importance of how weather dominates, okay, the activities of man and the systems around him. As I think we did this as well, and we have the India Metrological Department. Now, let me tell you that many students pronounce this as the Indian Meteorological Department. No, it is registered as the India Meteorological Department. This you have its branch in Pune itself, the IMD as it is called, or more popularly called as the Simla office, which is in Shivajinagar. And you'll see that they do provide weather forecasting for various purposes, and we've seen all these various purposes around, in the sense, right from government to government officials to shipping and mercantile shipping, that's mercantile and navy, community project. Now, of course, port officials and shipping and mercantile would be using it in a particular way, but then community project will be looking at it from a different way. Different services are going to use weather forecasting services in a different way. Agriculture looks at mountaineer would look at it in a different way. Fishing and general public will have varied interests as such. Okay, so you'll see that the IMD has to be ready with the weather phenomena. You don't know who is going to use that particular form of data in what format as such. And yes, I think we stopped at this various aspects. Okay, weather forecasting solutions as such. Okay, at time it used to be that you were dependent on elderly people, but now you see that technology manages a lot of these things, and in fact, you have we have already said that those list of weather apps that we have, and of course, I just displayed a few of them, is all because of the supporting technology that we have with it. And you'll see that weather does play an important role as far as mythology also is concerned. One of the reasons why it plays that important role is, in fact, the unpredictability, the dynamism as far as weather phenomena are concerned. And this dynamism, this unpredictability has to be very important. And we all know that psychologically or mythologically, when we are not able to explain anything, we don't have a proper logic for something, we then leave it to two aspects. If something good happens out of that, we would say that God did it for us. And if something bad happens to us, then we would say that the demon did it for us. So, and then we bring in the philosophy of pap and punya and so on and so forth. And this then gets glorified, and then this gets personified as well, in the sense you'll see that thunderbolt is a weapon which is actually used by Indra in the Hindu mythology as such. Okay, and here is one, and of course, those you may know. Okay, that this white elephant is called as Airavat, and of course, it's the say the vehicle of Indra as such. And then you have the Brahma, and of course, then you have waters, and then you have the wind god as such. Okay, the different directions in which, and so on and so forth. So it's here. It's not only in the Hindu mythology. You'll see that you have it in the Greek mythology also, and I will not go into the details, but you'll see that it's again it's an international phenomenon. You see that these are Japanese gods as well. I kept on searching for many throughout the internet. I just could gather a few of them, and I will purposely not name them basically because it's not a part of our syllabus. But it would be very interesting to get the names of them, and so on and so forth. So that makes say the study of weather and weather forecasting much more interesting as. Okay, now when we are actually forecasting weather, what are the various phenomena that are associated, and what are the various tools that are associated with forecasting of weather as such? These are going to be various instruments, of course. But coming to this, you'll see that there are two types of weather forecasting. One is the scientific, and the other one is the synoptic. When I say synoptic, if you look at the dictionary meaning of the word synoptic, it is something by observation. Now you see that even scientific is out of observation, but there have been interesting times wherein synoptic forecasting has been done in the sheer sense of observation as such. In fact, you'll see that you have different types of laws. Now, what is a law? Law is a body of traditions and knowledge on the subject or held by a particular group, typically passed from person to person by word of mouth as such. Let us say, as far as lunar in the sense, as far as moon is concerned, you'll see that even these days, it is said that the phases of the moon do impact the weather systems as such. Now, when we say phases, it's actually the position of the moon, basically, because on a new moon day and a full moon day, the moon is in conjunction with the sun, and that is why the combined impact of gravity of the sun and the moon is going to be higher. As a consequence, the tides are going to be higher, and the impact is going to be unique as such. At the same time, when it's going to be say the eighth day, Ashtami Jalapana, on that day you are going to have a neap tide as such. And somewhere it could be true that as far as these phases and the impact of the say gravity of the individual moon and sun, and though the sun is much larger, the nearness that the moon is to the earth will obviously make its gravity impact on many objects on the surface as such. And it is say it's on these that you have that Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha, and on that basis, many times it is said that once the rain starts in a particular Paksha, then for the whole fortnight, Paksha म्हणजे आपण English मध्ये त्याला fortnight म्हणून, for that whole fortnight you're going to have rain, or if it is going to be dry, then it will stay dry for the whole fortnight. Now, how much of logic you have in that, how much of science, I would rather say, have in that is good. It's very, very interesting. Colors. Now, obviously, you'll see that as far as coloring of the sky is concerned, we have seen this when we are doing the introductory aspects of troposphere, etc., that the reflection of the sun's rays from dust particles, etc., will particularly at an angle will bring in various colors to the sky as such. It has been that people have been observing these colors, and they have been observing the phenomena which are associated with these colors as such. And many times they would match them, and they would say that, okay, if this is the shade of the sky, probably it is going to rain in the evening, or it may not rain for the next few days, or it is going to be hot in the coming days, or it is going to be cold, and so on and so forth. So color, say, is an important aspect that older people used to use as far as forecasting weather is concerned. Animals, you'll see that as far as animals are concerned, it's again very interesting to know that it's not only animals, but it's going to be flowers and plants also. And that's why floral It should have been floral and faunal. You see that the fact that you're going to have some trees are going to flower at a particular time, some trees are going to have fruit at a particular time exclusively. And in fact, I don't know how many of you all have read about Ayurveda, but what we see as Ayurvedic products these days, I feel like laughing at these products basically because the very reason that firstly that they are manufactured at a massive scale, okay, and an economic scale, I would say. And when you are doing something at an economic scale, and when you are doing something at a mechanized level, you are putting it in a factory. The output is certainly not going to be in that particular way. I remember I was asking an Ayurvedic doctor as to what is the difference and how good is it to buy these Patanjali products, etc., etc. He said that they would have performed, or rather they do perform, if you have done your Ayurveda well. If you go into the details of Ayurveda, they give you the timing at which a particular fruit is supposed to be plucked, a particular flower is going to be plucked, which part of that particular flower, whether it has to be tender, whether it has to be hard, and so on and so forth, has to be used in the medication purpose as such. Nowadays, what happens is everything is done on a massive scale, large scale. And if you have read various ancient texts, you know that these sages, के हे जे साधु लोग असायचे, they used to go in search of these. They used to know that, okay, this is going to be the flowering time for this particular flower, and that flower, if it is very important as far as treating a particular disease is concerned, infection is concerned, they used to wait for that particular time, and they used to go into the forest to hunt for those the peculiar variety as such. So it took some time. It's not like you grow it like a farm and you put it in machines and then pack it, and then you have an Ayurvedic product as such. They could help you, but the percentage at which they are supposed to be giving you an output is obviously going to be much less than by somebody doing it in a serious sense of Ayurveda as such. Atmospheric conditions, of course, do help in understanding scientific synoptic climatology also. When we are speaking about, say weather forecasting, let us see what are the procedures involved in weather forecasting. This is getting into the more scientific way of weather forecasting as such. Because you'll see that though we spoke about these various types of lores and traditions, and you have these various songs, now why is it that they are remembered in songs? We know that when we see a movie, okay, a song in that particular movie tends to get attractive basically because of its lyrics. It could be because of its music, because of its scenario, and so on and so there are various aspects around that particular song which make you remember that song. You may remember the complete stanza of that song, but you may not remember even a few dialogues otherwise in that particular movie. So you'll see that the style in which a song is made is actually the way in which it should be remembered. When it is remembered, it can easily pass from one generation to other. Now, why did it have to pass from one generation to other in this particular way? Because we did not have the skill of writing, we did not have, particularly, we did not have the skill of printing. Okay, it's only when we invented printing and we invented various textile formats that now we can actually produce and reproduce various textures or scriptures, okay, at length as such. But this was not possible in olden times. So the only way was to actually pass it in an entertaining way. So many a times it used to be passed from one generation to other in say in reciting it in a songful manner as such. So that's an interesting aspect. Now, when we did this, okay, it's not that on a particular day you saw a particular style or particular phenomena in the sky and then you noted it. Okay, it was tried and tested regularly, and only when it was confirmed it used to be actually transferred. In the process of transfer, then songs used to be developed, and then that is how they used to move from one generation to the other. When it comes to science, weather forecasting needs to be following. And in fact, I would say that this could be equally important as far as folklore also is concerned as such. And it's performed, weather forecasting is performed by adopting a few procedures. What are these procedures? There are various steps. Okay, you have to start from one and then you have to come down gradually. You can't jump, and if you tend to jump, then the say the guarantee of your forecast, the assurity of your forecast will obviously be seriously hampered as such. So we start with the first one, which is called as recording. Okay, unless and until you record a particular data, it could be temperature in the furnace, and that's why I asked you all to do add that also as a part of our assignment as such. In fact, again, had we had time, I would have actually asked you all to write down, okay, your observations about that and so on and so forth. But then coming back to weather forecasting, recording the weather data, which will include, as I said, temperature, the maximum temperature, the minimum temperature, the pressure. What are the pressure levels? To how fast do they change? What is the pressure gradient? Okay, recording of all this throughout the day is going to be important. What temperature and pressure are going to yield you is wind, and you see that the steepness of the gradient obviously is going to yield you wind speed as such, wind direction also as such, which side do you have high pressure, which side do you have low pressure. Okay, that will decide the movement. And in this whole process, you're going to have cloud forms, you're going to have humidity and precipitation. This is also going to be decided by the visibility, and of course studying storms. So even from the minutest of the information to say the largest, okay, the macro level information at a spatial scale, at a temporal scale, all of this minutely needs to be recorded at a particular place. And it's only when you have recorded that you can go into various say the other aspects as well. The second step that we come to in the processes of or the procedures of weather forecasting is collection of weather data and weather recording stations or centers scattered worldwide or including both land and ocean surfaces. Let me tell you that just recording is not going to be enough, basically because we know that weather is a very dynamic phenomenon. Weather in Pune is going to be different from weather in Satara and Sangli and Kolhapur and Ahmednagar and so on and so forth. So you have to record all these phenomena, all these parameters at different locations. Having recorded them at different locations, you have to gather them at a particular point. And that process is called as this putting together is called as collection as such. And as I said, from micro level again to macro level as such, you have specific stations in different parts. Okay, you could have general stations, you could have high precision stations of collecting weather information and so on and so forth. They could be on land, and only on land is not going to be enough. Okay, you'll see that it becomes equally important that we understand what is happening on water surfaces, because water surfaces occupy more than 70% on the surface of this particular planet as such. So collecting it from all sources, okay, putting it together is going to be very important. The third procedure as far as weather forecasting is concerned is transmission. This weather data has to be data collected from major weather stations is supposed to be transmitted to various centers as such. Okay, you'll see that not all data can be analyzed or put to analysis at a particular place. You have to actually transmit it, particularly if it is in electronic format. It's not going to be easy. Okay, you'll see that initially you had synoptic weather instruments, in the sense a thermometer is that sort of a thing that any layman can actually check the temperature of a thermometer. Nowadays, high precision instruments give you combination of all these things, the pressure and the temperature and the wind speed, everything comes to you. But you'll see that all of this works around sensors. And you'll see that the precision in weather forecasting would come around in through sensors and such digital data collection as such. So you have to transmit the recorded data, you have to transmit the collected data at locations where you have high precision instruments to actually work on that data and give you some outputs. Okay, so you're going to have say main centers, sub centers, etc. Okay, then the next part is compilation of the weather data. Once the data is, you'll see that so many minute things. Okay, when you look at the first word, it thinks that is this really necessary? But you'll see that the risk at which various systems are when we speak about weather, when we speak about weather forecasting, it has to be very done at a very micro, minute, and critical level as such. You see that ज्याला आपण बारीक बारीक टप्पे म्हणतो, okay, you'll see that all of this tend to be followed in these 7 stages as such. You record data, you collect data, you transmit data. Once you have transmitted data, you think that okay, the work is done. No, you have to now go for compilation of this particular data as such. You compile it accordingly, in the sense that say whether a data is to be compiled for spatial scale, whether the data is to be compiled for temporal scale. When I say spatial, is it at micro scale? When I say spatial, is it at macro scale? When I say temporal, is it, say, a forecast for 24 hours, whether it is a forecast for 48 hours, whether it is for 72 hours, whether it is for a week, whether it is for a month, all of this needs to be put together. Okay, and it's the dynamism of these weather parameters which makes all of this very, very important and critical as well. So just transmitting data is not going to be enough. You have to compile it, you have to sort it in a particular way as such. Now this compiled data has to go into its next stage as such, and that is called as plotting. Plotting of weather data on maps, and you'll see and theory records, synoptic charts, and so on and so forth. Plotting is something like this. Okay, this India daily weather report. Okay, this is how plotting once upon a time used to be done manually. Nowadays, of course, you use a lot of GIS techniques. You use a lot of digitization process when it comes to plotting as such. Okay, and the reason why we have moved to more to techniques, technology, and etc. is because you'll see that this all this thing is so very repetitive. कधीतरी bore व्हायला होतं, and you'll see that boredom is something which is very common as far as human activities are concerned. So if a human being is recording, a human being is collecting, a human being is transmitting that data. Transmitting means you're actually carrying it from one place to other. If a human being is compiling, okay, if a human being is now plotting, there could be a human error. And that's why you need technology. This does not mean that human beings are somewhere falling back and technology is superior. Always remember that it is human beings who actually are making this technology happen around you. Okay, a layman may not know, but there is going to be some scientist at some point of time who actually knows and reads between lines as to what is happening. So there is always a saying, and of course you have these fiction movies which show you that these robots are going to take over everything, etc. But remember that robots are actually man-made. It's a man-made technology. So you see that the human brain is obviously going to be faster than this. Okay, but the very fact that you can make robots work for hours together in 24 hours, a human being will require sleep. He may be fatigued out. He may be bored, as I have already said, because of all these activities. But technology will not. Robots will not. So the more technology that you use in weather forecasting, the better it is going to be in the whole process as such. Having plotted, okay, this weather data, now is the time to analyze. Okay, you have to analyze weather charts and weather maps with the help of electronic computer programs and modeling as such. Okay, you'll see that there are various models. Say, for example, as far as monsoon in India is concerned, you had the Goarikar model, okay, which was based on 15 parameters, which were then further increased as such. So you'll see that you work around some parameters, you try to put it together. It is like say that Rubik cube as such, okay, that you try to say bring the right side one particular color at a particular angle. So bringing red color at a particular face is actually the target. Now, how am I going to get that? Okay, that's going to be say the steps which I take is going to be written down, and that is actually called as a modeling as such. If you actually go to the internet and you look for these aspects on YouTube, You will have many videos which will show you how mathematically you come to solving the Rubik cube and getting say and actually they have worked out mathematical formulas as such. Why I am giving you this example is that if I have a certain set of parameters for a particular year and I see that, okay, the monsoon this year has been 100% fine, I use that as a model. Okay, I'm going to compare that model with, say, years before, or of course, I'm going to compare it to the years that are going to be coming down the stream as such. And then I tend to get out trends out of that. So in a year wherein everything was normal, okay, I would keep that record and then I will compare it to in a year wherein there was more than normal rains, or there is, say, less than normal rain. And what is the exact difference, what is the exact change that actually took place with in this regard is something that is involves in computer programs modeling, which all comes under what is called as analysis as. Okay, having done this, now you have to see it's not only scientists who are going to play with all this. Why are scientists doing this? Okay, all of us are doing this basically because the application finally has to reach the layman who doesn't have the time, who's involved in other works. Okay, and that is why a certain section of the society is continuously working on these parameters, and they are going to give you these various weather forecasting aspects as such. So this, say, the final forecasting and making it available to, say, people around you is going to be a regular procedure. The last end, I would rather say, the actual forecasting, okay, saying that it's going to rain in the next 6 hours, it's not going to rain for the next 2 days, it's going to be snowing, say, day after tomorrow. All this will be dependent on all six, say, parameters or rather procedures that tend to be followed as such. Let me tell you that all these procedures are so very systematic as such. Okay, you just can't skip any of these. Okay, skipping any of these procedures would be difficult, and in fact, that could hamper the perfection in which rate of perfection in which you could actually be working around, say, forecasting various styles and types of weather as such. So you actually start with recording, you collect the recorded material, you transmit the recorded and collected material, then you compile the recorded, collected and transmitted material. After compilation, you go into plotting the recorded, collected, transmitted and say compiled material as such. Okay, after that, after you have done the plotting, you go into the analysis of the recorded, collected, transmitted, compiled, and plotted material as such. Eventually, you actually go into forecasting something on the forecasting based on recording, collection, transmission, compilation, plotting, and analysis of all the information and data that you have. It would sound funny that at every point of time I was repeating, but you see that if you actually mean business, okay, if you actually mean business, you have to follow this, and so that you don't skip out of this, you actually have to memorize this regularly. And somebody who's day in and day out into forecasting, you'll see that somebody who's going to be forecasting is going to be someone who is going to be different from analysis, in the sense there are going to be different individuals, different people. Somebody is going to do the recording for you, somebody is going to do the collection for you, somebody is going to do the transmission for you, somebody is going to do the whole compilation for you, somebody who's skilled in maps, etc., or drawing, plotting for us, and then somebody is going to analyze, and putting all of this is actually the job of a forecaster as such. So every element in this whole procedure of weather forecasting is going to be very, very important as such. Okay, so say weather forecasting procedures will involve all these aspects as such. Okay, now the whole process of say right from recording to collection and transmission, compilation, plotting, this is supported with technology. Okay, and you'll see that it has been, or say, some time that man has actually gone into forecasting as such. What are the tools in technology that is used as far as this whole process is concerned. Okay, you start with instruments in the form of thermometers, barometers, hygrographs, gauges, and graphs. To all say you come to the end of GIS plotting, you come into GIS softwares, computers, and nowadays you'll see whatnot, very high, say, very fast calculating computers, supercomputers are being required as far as say forecasting and building models as such. Okay, once you build the model, then actually you put in the data into that particular set, and you'll get the output as such. It's very similar to a model is like say for example you have this online admission form as such. Okay, you'll see that the basic form is going to be the same. Any student who logs on to your website, the website will first ask that particular student to fill in his name and mobile number, and then they'll get the registration username and ID. Then you have to log in, and then of course you fill in your other data like the address and your marks, etc., etc. Now, while every student is going to open the website, every time every student is going to see these sets, and you'll see that somewhere towards the back office, every student who has filled in the data is actually aligned in a particular fashion, so that the college, once it gathers all the data, it can come up with say your merit list and so on and so forth as such. So it has to be very, very systematic as such. Gone are the days wherein you could take a chance. Nowadays, you can't take a chance because a lot many things are at a risk, right from an aeroplane taking off or a ship sailing from a particular port to a farmer sowing seed or sorry, conducting an election at some point of time in some corner or constructing a dam across a river. Okay, everything involves weather forecasting as such. Okay, the more assured you are of a type of weather, okay, the better you would be in a position to say use the resources around you in the optimal way, I would rather say. Okay, as far as tools and technologies used in this whole process is concerned, we'll be coming to those use of those tools when we meet tomorrow. As far as the day is concerned, we are going to stop here for the day, and having stopped that, okay. If you have any queries as to whatever we had done to date, I will obviously be giving you, I will be uploading this in some time from now. This was rather, in fact, our second lecture as far as weather forecasting is concerned. We have done last week, and probably tomorrow we should be in a position. Okay, I'm not putting up any targets as such, but we should be in a position to finish off this particular topic. Even if it doesn't, it would go into the next week. So that should not be much of an issue as such. If you have any queries for me as far as whatever we have done, if you have any observations for me, you could obviously bring up those observations and we could discuss them across as well. Yeah, if you have any queries, you could please ask.
सर, वेबिनारची असाइनमेंट तुम्ही डिजिटल मध्ये करायला लावली होती आणि आम्ही रिटर्न मध्ये केली. सर, तुम्ही आधी लेक्चर मध्ये रिटर्न मध्ये बोललो होतो.
ठीक आहे ना, ठीक आहे, डोंट वरी रिटर्न करायची आणि त्याच्यामध्ये मग तुम्ही डिजिटल फोटो करायचा. म्हणजे काय करायचं मी तुम्हाला सांगतो. रिटर्नचा तुम्ही हे करू शकता, स्कॅन काढू शकता. रिटर्न स्कॅन केली की त्याचा तुमचा एक शीट तयार होतो. वन्स दॅट शीट इज रेडी, यू कॅन पेस्ट डिजिटल फोटोग्राफ्स ऑन दॅट ऑल्सो, आणि त्याच्यानंतर त्याची पुन्हा पीडीएफ करू शकता. सगळ्यांनी तुमचे सर्टिफिकेट्स, यू हॅव टू अपलोड युअर सर्टिफिकेट्स अलॉंग विथ युअर लास्ट पेज ऑफ युअर असाइनमेंट. वेबिनार
सर,
इज
आमची
गोइंग टू
नाहीये
बी,
सर
यू
तुम्ही
हॅव टू
फर्स्ट
बोला.
पेजला ते वेबिनारच्या ह्याला, म्हणजे मी एडिट करून परत टाकते लास्ट पेजला, पण तुम्ही फर्स्ट पेजला सांगितलं होतं
ठीक
सर्टिफिकेट
आहे,
अपलोड.
यू सी, आता कसं आहे की वी हॅव टू फॉलो प्रोसिजर. फर्स्ट सांगितलं असेल आधी तर इट्स फाईन. फर्स्ट पेज इज गोइंग टू बी फाईन. नो इश्यूज.
ओके सर, थँक्यू.
सर, जर म्हणजे आय डिड नॉट गेट माय सर्टिफिकेट. मी परत चेक केलं त्या रॉर फाईल मध्ये, पण ते नव्हतं तिकडं. सो
See, I don't know. Many people are saying it is not there. When I check it, it is there. If you say it is
सर,
not there and I find it for you, I'll give you 0 marks for attending. Let me tell you.
सर ऍक्च्युली आम्ही त्याचा फीडबॅक नाही दिला त्यामुळे ते नाही आलं सर्टिफिकेट.
मग तुम्ही कॉन्टॅक्ट करा त्यांना, नाहीतर तुम्हाला अटेंडन्सचे मार्क देणार नाही मी. माझ्याकडनं जेवढं जमलं तेवढं मला आधी ज्यांनी ज्यांनी सांगितलं सगळ्यांची सर्टिफिकेट्स मिळवून दिली मी. आपल्याला तेवढंच काम नाहीये ना, दॅट इज जस्ट वन ऑफ द असाइनमेंट. आणि फिलिंग इन द फीडबॅक वॉज अ पार्ट ऑफ अटेंडिंग द होल सेमिनार. You get in touch with those people and fetch a certificate for yourself. Yeah, any other queries you have for me?